I'm in lovely City Hall Park at the fountain. It's a little bit overcast. It's kind of a nice day. We're getting close to glove weather, and the fountain is flanked by various objects d'art. I don't even know what this is. Here. It's Thaddeus Mosley touching the earth. It's a geometric plateau, obviously. But down here near City Hall, this could become Zorhan Mamdani's office pretty soon. Man, that'll be terrible. I mean, we've got all this poly market and polls and everything anticipating it. I just don't see how people could be for somebody who has just no, Charles would say he has no managerial experience. I just think this guy has no experience whatsoever other than being a jackass and having, stupid jobs in city council that he never shows up for, never votes for what he's supposed to vote for, doesn't seem to know what he's doing. Setting aside all the communist, radical, Islamist, crazy ideas the guy has. But that's not really what I want to talk about today. A lot of people are wondering and even asking me, why is the FBI involved in this investigation into Charlie Kirk's murder? It's a good question. Here's another object d'art. Maybe it's from Thaddeus as well. Yeah, it is, Thaddeus Mosley. I don't know this guy, Thaddeus. What's up, Thad? Inclination. Slightly Dali-esque, I would say. People can look up Thaddeus Mosley. You're going to know more about him than I do. I never heard of the guy before right now. But the FBI investigating Charlie Kirk's murder. People have speculated, well, they're there to cover it up. I tend to agree with that. I'm saying, this guy's ringing the bell, riding the bicycle. That guy should really be arrested right now. Look at that. Weaving in and out. What do we have the police here for? So this is exactly what I want to talk about today, because it's a big question, this federal law enforcement versus local law enforcement. What the hell are the police doing here if they're not enforcing the law? There's nobody in that car. So they're just parked. Probably off having lunch or something. Man, that guy is just traversing. How long until he injures somebody? Local law enforcement versus federal law enforcement. I mean, the question came up. Actually, I can't believe I waited this long to look into it more thoroughly, but, remember when Seth Rich was allegedly killed? And one of the people actually commenting on X, follow me there, please, if you aren't already. We've had a lot of activity happening on X lately. At JG_CSTT. I succeeded in getting the, sensitive content ban or whatever it was. Got that lifted. Is the live stream working? Looks like it. Anyway, somebody on X was commenting with the handle, I am Seth Rich, or something like that. This idea of what is the FBI doing investigating murder, which is a state crime. We would expect local law enforcement to do that. In Utah, murder is not a federal crime, it's a state crime. You kill somebody in Utah, you get arrested by the police, you go to criminal court. In Utah, same thing in Washington, D.C., where Seth Rich was allegedly killed. Why was the FBI involved? It came up at the time, when was that, 2017? Remember, I spoke with Rod Wheeler, former Washington, D.C. Metro Police detective. I wonder if I trust that guy. I mean, he was a nice enough guy, but very sketchy. He runs a private food security company, and why was he wasting his time talking to me? I had no presence on social media at all. He was involved in all kinds of litigation. It's weird. It just strikes me as the type of guy who would say, hey, I don't know you. I'm not doing an interview with you. And remember who was with me when that happened? Tall, drunk, social engineering moron, George Webb. Look at all this. What do we need this mess of street vending and craziness right outside City Hall? New York is an absolute dump. And I mean, I'm sure, you know, when Zoran Mamdani wants to eliminate prosecution of misdemeanors, you're going to have all manner of crime going on. Here we have emergency services from the police. I'm sure they're doing nothing. Here, we've got a guy riding a bicycle right in the middle of the park. It's not an emergency, obviously, to these guys. When somebody gets injured, then it'll become an emergency. Why prevent crime? Anyway, Rod Wheeler touched on it, but he didn't really give a very good answer. People who've been watching for a while might have noticed I like detailed answers. I try to speak clearly and express my thoughts in a way that people can understand. You know, we got a lot of idiots coming forward saying, no, Jason's debunked. There are flies and wasps and moths flying around Charlie Kirk. So these 3 projectiles that he's explained repeatedly, he's debunked. But they obviously haven't read the detailed articles I've written about the high frame rate mode of Dolby HDR, Dolby Vision HDR on the iPhone. It's become so important, hasn't it? People have probably seen, I had this X post of the Dolby Vision HDR. We got a great clip from an eyewitness. You can follow me there at JG_CSTT. I was able to make this 4K blow up. So people understand, on the left, that's the original resolution derived from the full bit rate, 15.46 megabits per second from Cub Keller. A lot of people have been using this guy's footage and not giving him any credit, so follow him there on X. We wouldn't have this if it wasn't for him. Shot not only in HDR, but 60 frames per second. Now, he didn't shoot at 4K. That would have been even better. But, I mean, you know, give the guy a break. He's paying for a lot of memory on the phone. The point is, why the hell is the FBI investigating? So Rod Wheeler said, oh, well, you know, he sort of vaguely spoke about how the FBI has more sophisticated forensic analysis capability than the Washington, D.C. Metro Police, and they can ask them to get involved. And it's just like, what the hell are you talking about, Rod Wheeler? That sounds very loosey-goosey. Aren't the police and the FBI dictated by laws? He didn't really get into any of that. But luckily, I looked into it today. It's a loud cart. I looked into it today, and we have Trey Gowdy to thank. The FBI gets involved thanks to the Investigative Assistant for Violent Crimes Act. And this was only passed in 2012. It used to be not well defined. But now, thanks to Trey Gowdy, conehead that he is, prior to this, they had long provided without statutory authority, meaning no law granted them the authority to do it. They just sort of like, yeah, whatever, help us out, you know? And then they would do it. Pretty loosey-goosey, like I said. But thanks to Trey Gowdy, official do-nothing conehead, now Fox News do-nothing conehead, they have a law that says if there's a violent crime, you know, you can cite this law, and the FBI gets involved. So I wanted to come down here to talk about this whole concept of local law enforcement, which we saw up there doing nothing, and then federal law enforcement, which we can see over here. Today they're doing nothing. All these fences are up because this is where everybody saw they were going crazy, you know, with all the ICE people. That's the Jacob K. Javits Federal Building. So there's all kinds of business going on in there. I guess the FBI, I'm pretty sure the FBI offices are in there, the U.S. attorneys are in there, all the federal crap goes on in there. So ICE, I presume, is in there. DHS, everything. When Congress came, they had their little remote hearing in that building. That's the only time I've ever been in there, to tell you the truth. Oh, wait a minute. I did not realize that from right here, look, you can see that's, I can't really point because my finger's too close, but see those sort of weird portals? That building there is 33 Thomas Street. The crazy, what do they call it? The Long Lines building, I think. That's like a Verizon or AT&T operated, you know, that's where Prism is happening, that Bill Binney, who I also don't trust, for good reason. I saw emails from Bill Binney to Robert David Steele in Discovery in Steele v. Goodman, where he was pretending to be my friend and sending asshole messages to Robert David Steele about what I was up to. Brian says ICE is on the main and second floor. Yeah, so maybe people know more about that Jacob Javits federal building than I do, but this is where everybody was freaking out. So again, so that, you know, violent crimes, whatever it is act, that now gives basically, I guess, any local police a statutory basis to say, hey, FBI, can you help us out? Right? So people who have been saying to me, oh, the FBI is there to cover up the Charlie Kirk investigation, I don't disagree with you. I think you're right. But they've got a statutory basis to do it now with that act since 2012. I didn't know about that until today. So I don't know, maybe people learned something useful. That's my hope. Try to figure things out. The other thing I want to do is we check out and see, speaking of local law enforcement versus federal law enforcement, Canal Street is just up here to the north a little bit. We'll look at that. I mean, it creates some impressive viral social media videos for Nick Shirley and Savannah Hernandez and other people. They deserve it. I think those two are both good and competent journalists. I ran into Savannah Hernandez one time up at the Trump rally in the Bronx. She was very standoffish. I mean, I don't know, I guess people don't like me for who knows whatever reason. Somebody was in the comments just here saying that George Webb's YouTube channel is crazy. That's probably because he's crazy and he runs it. And, you know, listen, maybe Savannah Hernandez associates me with him, doesn't like him. Anything is possible. That guilt by association, it's human nature to some extent. By the way, a lot of people have been asking me, where's John Cullen? Can you call John Cullen? He hasn't posted in 10 or 12 days or something like that. Well, I don't really know where John Cullen is. I mean, I have an idea where he might be, but I'm not interested in doing anything to harm him or reveal his location. I'm not going to be speaking with him anymore, and I'm not going to contact him and ask him where he is. He's an adult. I'm sure he's fine. Probably camping, unwinding. You know, it was a bit of a stressful week 2 weeks ago or whenever it was that he disappeared from the internet. I'll address it just because people are asking me about it. And it's got to do with this guilt by association that just came up, so it's a good segue to that topic until we get to Canal Street. But people might have seen on X, it was unfolding where, you know, John likes to be rude, which is fine. I'm not going to tell him how to act if that's the brand that he wants to cultivate. Now, wait a minute. I lost signal over here chasing Norm, so let's go this way. Got all kinds of police buildings and police activity around here. I don't want to lose signal. I hate it when that happens. But what happened was, John was in his regular course of, you know, being aggressive and rude to people on X, and he sent a message to a particular lawyer that a lot of people know, who I think is a lawfare operative. That's my opinion based on looking at his activity in the public domain. I could be wrong. You might look at the same evidence and come to some other conclusion, but I think the guy's a lawfare operative. And John posted a comment that his associate, who's also a sort of lawyer, maybe not a bar member, but a lawyer from another country, certainly dabbles in law, started interacting with John and saying things on X that caused me to become concerned that these lawyer fellows were construing John's comments as threats. And see, the problem is, when you tangle with lawfare operatives, what's actually happening and what they can make it appear is happening might be two different things. And it was just clear to me that John was antagonizing these people, and then he posted another inflammatory comment that included a video of me, my face, my likeness, my voice, my brand logo, and it just seemed very irresponsible, particularly given John's pseudonymous status. He's not using his real name. His address isn't published in 25 lawsuits over the last 9 years from George Webb's mentally ill brother. So he's doing all this stuff really with no legal liability for himself, and taking a lot of liberties with the legal liability that he's putting on me. That's where Alvin Bragg and Letitia James were doing their lawfare against Donald Trump. Collect Pond Park, we've seen a lot of bizarre police weirdo activity in there. So anyway, I didn't like it that John did that. And simultaneous with him doing that, another lawfare loser, George's brother, started sending emails to the lawyer for Twitter who I'm dealing with in Goodman versus the City of New York. If you've just joined me on this journey through Crowdsource the Truth, you may not be aware that I attempted to alert Elon Musk to the fact that the FBI, federal law enforcement, had infiltrated Twitter like a month and a half before we ever heard of the Twitter files and Matt Taibbi and any of that. And I got choked outside the building. So again, what these lawfare people choose to make hay out of, you might say, oh, it wasn't a threat. It doesn't matter what you think it is. It matters how they can construct it in an allegation. Anyway, George's brother sends an email to the lawyer for Twitter saying, oh, Jason and his associate are threatening people on Twitter. You should terminate his account. Now, if that had happened, even if it took me 2 or 3 weeks or 2 months or 2 years or 5 years to unwind that, whether it was true or not, I'd be off of X. I'd have no ability to produce these videos and tell people that they can sponsor the show by going to subscribestar.com or patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. I need people to sponsor the show. This is my only source of income. It's not ads on stuff. I'm not getting paid by some big gold company or some VPN company. It's viewer sponsorship. Everybody's having a tough time staying in business. So that's what they're trying to do, is to put me out of business. People can also go to crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com, or of course you can subscribe if you're following me on X at JG_CSTT. You can subscribe there. It's really inexpensive, but the $5 a month that the individual viewer sponsors pay to subscribe to the show, to access sponsor exclusive content and keep the independent journalism going, it's all I've got. So they're trying to destroy that, and I basically had to, with some urgency, let John know that he had to delete those tweets, posts, and he did, thankfully. He cooperated with that. And then I was able to inform the lawyer for X, Twitter, X Twitter. I was able to inform him that I'm not affiliated with that pseudonymous third party. He doesn't speak for me or represent me. And this is a universal truth. He doesn't. And by the way, these might be licensed street vendors. When they have the table, there is a certain kind of license you can get to have this. It's different than the people who are normally set up here. And I mean, I wonder if they're back. You arrest 9 of them it's not going to solve this problem. I saw a lot of people saying, hey, this looks like one of them. I saw a lot of people saying, oh, forever we've had counterfeit goods being sold on the Canal Street. These guys have stolen Apple headphones. So the point is, it's not a matter of these guys have been here forever and they should be safe from ICE. This is organized crime that's happening here. And I mean, it's sort of like saying, oh, there's been murder and rape in New York forever, so we need to protect our murderers and rapists and allow them to conduct their business. Everybody's just trying to make a living. So like I said, they haven't solved this problem. These guys are still here. If the NYPD wanted to stop this, I think they could. They could send somebody over here every day. You could arrest these guys selling the stuff. What would be even smarter would be to nab the tourists buying it and arrest them and bring them to the police station, force them to pay some huge fine on the spot or confiscate their passport or something, make it very uncomfortable to buy these goods, and then that business would go away. Maybe it's too dangerous to arrest a bunch of aggressive migrants who want to fight the cops, but you know, these fat little British ladies and their boyfriends who want to save some money on a fake Gucci bag, you give them a $500 ticket, maybe they'll lose their appetite for it. But you know, it's already coming back. It's not going to go away. I've seen these guys, they get the merchandise from these vans. What do you got to say, stupid? Don't talk to me. These guys think this is their street. They don't pay any tax. Anybody's like, oh, they're just trying to earn a living. No, they're criminals selling stolen goods, hiding their faces. They shouldn't be here. None of them should be here. It was a good job that Nick Shirley did and that Savannah Hernandez did. Oh, they just moved over here. So they're off Canal Street onto Broadway, but we still have the same problem. If you are a tourist and you're coming to New York, do not buy this stolen crap. You're funding criminals. You're funding organized crime. You should be ashamed of yourself if your wife is buying any of this stolen crap. Stolen crap. And that's the deal. So this is where the tension comes from, that we get the federal law enforcement involved. But you see, the other part of this story that we should really talk about is the resistance to federal law enforcement. Because there's a lot of times that federal law enforcement has encroached on the state's rights to exercise the constitutional police powers. And by the way, I'm not an attorney. Nothing I'm saying is legal advice. Anything I say could be wrong. You should look it up. I don't think it is. I'm trying to be careful, but I'm not perfect. I sometimes make mistakes. There's a lot of liars who would have you believe things that are false. There was even came on who said there's no evidence of murder, coherent hypotheses that I can't. So hopefully away from whatever that was doing that. Did people lose? Oh, Jason, you're lying for me. Not lying. But the truth is, criminal sales guys employing some sort of electronic exploit to stop me from broadcasting. I hope my broadcast has returned. I'm monitoring it right now, and I don't see if I'm back up. But poor connection. Damn it. When it buffers. And money. Anyway, what I'm pointing out here on the video is that people can go to crowdsourcethetruth.org and participate. People were a little confused by that. You are supporting Crowdsource the Truth. Because, of course, I don't think anybody is going to be able to prove is not you give me evidence and you get money. That would be a different offer. Yeah, okay, here, now I see myself running across the street, so I think I should be back pretty soon. That's annoying. I have this whole bonded link aggregating system, but it looks like we're back, and maybe, yeah, I've shown everybody the file upload portal, so you can use that to upload content to me that will then be used as evidence. And by the way, some of the people who've been sending me evidence, they thought that the bounty was to buy evidence. This is pretty nice of them. They thought that the bounty was to buy evidence, and they said, I don't want the money, I'm just going to give you the evidence. And thank you for that. I'm talking about Cub Keller and his friend Ryan Simmons. They both just gave me evidence because they want to know what's going on with Charlie Kirk. It was Ryan who actually said that he doesn't want the money. What he didn't quite understand is that the bounty wasn't paying for evidence. The purpose of it, and if you want to participate either as a sponsor of it or as someone who's going to challenge the thesis, please read the terms and conditions, because like I said, I've laid it out there very clearly. If there's anything in there that you don't understand or you feel is unclear, you can ask me. I'm not saying it's a perfect document, but I've done my best to make it as good as it can be. And the idea is it is intended to promote transparency and integrity in the investigation. Yeah, I think that might be right, John. Although, who knows? It's New York City. There's a lot of radio pollution around. Anybody could be doing anything. I think we're out of that dead zone. Point is, the purpose of the Evidence Bounty Challenge was to promote transparency, and it's working. Because remember, when we started a month and a half ago, within about a week, we had that 20 frame per second video. And I'll tell you what, I've learned a lot about the specifics of the HDR format on the iPhone, the Dolby Vision HDR. Remember, high dynamic range imaging is a field of photography. It's a process. Dolby Vision HDR is a specific implementation of it. And there are some complexities to it that I'm learning about. For instance, putting it onto X and YouTube, it's difficult. I've been watching a lot of videos about how to do it, and the consensus seems to be that it's extremely difficult. I guess the parameters are changing. A lot of the videos that I found are from 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and some of what they suggest to do is no longer compatible with the software that's available, and finding updated information has been proving complicated. So not all the videos that I've uploaded have stayed in their HDR format when you see them on X or YouTube. But they're still quite useful, and they originate from HDR, so that allows me to do certain things in the processing. You know, it's not like some fancy feature that I'm just fascinated with. It's recording a lot more information. It's a 10-bit recording, so when I blow it up and do all that kind of stuff, you're seeing a lot more detail. We're learning more. So the Evidence Bounty has been very helpful in bringing forward the evidence and doing what I intended for it to do. It's also been helpful in revealing social engineers. All that business. Now, this is another spot near here where I lose signal. I can't remember if it's this street or another. But all that business with Blake Bednar's and Tyler, what's his name? Those guys are jackasses. And now remember, Cullen, just to get back to him for a second, he brought me that video about the jet. You know, I hadn't spoken to him, and I hadn't spoken about this, but let's talk about it now that people are aware that there's been a rift and they're asking me to contact him. I appreciate that people are concerned, but as I said, John is an adult, and he's either fine or not, and either way, there's nothing I can do about it. I think he's probably fine, and he'll be back soon. I suspect, but I'm not in touch with him anymore, and I'm not going to contact him anymore. After he removed those posts,